days when the world was young, there lived in France a man of no importance. Everyone said he was a man of no importance, and he firmly believed this for himself, for he was just a poor traveling juggler who could not read or write, who went about from town to town following the little country fairs and performing his tricks for a few pennies a day. His name was Barnaby. When the weather was beautiful and people were strolling about the streets, this juggler would find a clear space in the village square, spread a strip of old carpet out on the cobblestones, and on it he would perform his tricks for children and grown-ups alike. Now, Barnaby, although he knew he was a man of no importance, was an amazing juggler. First, he would only balance a tin plate on the tip of his nose. But when the crowd had collected, he would stand on his hands and juggle 6 copper balls in the air at the same time, catching them with his feet. And sometimes, when he would juggle 12 sharp knives in the air, the villagers would be so delighted that a rain of pennies would fall on his strip of carpet. And when his day's work was over and he was wearily resting his aching muscles, Barnaby would collect the pennies in his hat, kneel down reverently, and thank God for the gift. And always the people would laugh at his simplicity, and everyone would agree that Barnaby would never amount to anything. But all this is about the happy days in Barnaby's life, the springtime days when people were willing to toss a penny to a poor juggler. When winter came, Barnaby had to wrap his juggling equipment in the carpet and trudge along the roads begging a night's lodging in farmers' barns, or entertaining the servants of some rich nobleman to earn a meal. And Barnaby never thought of complaining. He knew that the winter and the rains were as necessary as the spring sunshine, and he accepted his lot. For how, Barnaby would say to himself as he trudged along, could such an ignorant fellow as myself hope for anything better? And one year in France there was a terrible winter. It began to rain in October, and there was hardly a blue sky to be seen by the end of November. And on an evening in early December, at the end of a dreary, wet day, as Barnaby trudged along a country road, sad and bent, carrying under his arm the golden balls and knives wrapped up in his old carpet, he met a monk. Riding a fine white mule, dressed in warm clothes, well-fed and comfortable, the monk smiled at the sight of Barnaby and called to him, "It's going to be cold before morning. How would you like to spend the night at the monastery?" And that night, Barnaby found himself seated at the great candle-lit dining hall of the monastery. Although he sat at the bottom of the long table, together with the servants and the beggars, Barnaby thought he had never seen such a wonderful place in his life. The shining faces of 50 monks relaxing after this day of work and prayer. The monk who had met Barnaby on the road turned to the abbot. "This is a good man, simple and pure of heart." So the abbot nodded, and Barnaby that night put his juggling equipment under a cot in his own cubicle and decided that never again would he go back to his old profession. In the days that followed, everyone smiled at the eager way he scrubbed the floors and labored throughout the buildings. And everyone smiled at his simplicity. As for Barnaby, his face shone with happiness from morning until night, until 2 weeks before Christmas. And then Barnaby's joy suddenly turned to misery, for around him he saw every man preparing a wonderful gift to place in the chapel on Christmas. Brother Maurice, who had the art of illuminating copies of the Bible, and Brother Marbodi was completing a marvelous statue of Christ. Brother Ambrose, who wrote music and had completed scoring a great hymn to be played on the organ during Christmas services. All about Barnaby, those educated, trained artists followed their work, each one of them readying a beautiful gift to dedicate to God on Christmas Day. And what about Barnaby? He could do nothing. I am but a rough man, unskilled in the arts, and I can write no book, offer no paintings or statue or poem. Alas, I have no talent. I have no gift worthy of the day. Then a strange thing happened. On the evening of the Christmas day, when the chapel should have been deserted, one of the monks came running white-faced and panting with exertion into the private office of the abbot. He threw open the door without knocking, seized the abbot by the arms. Father, a frightful thing is happening. The most terrible sacrilege ever to take place is going on right in our own chapel. Come. Together the two portly men ran down the corridors, burst through a door, and came out on the balcony at the rear of the chapel. The monk pointed down toward the altar. The abbot looked, turned ashen in color. He's mad, for down below, in front of the altar, was Barnaby. He had spread out his strip of carpet, and kneeling reverently upon it was actually juggling in the air 12 golden balls. He was giving his old performance and giving it beautifully. His bright knives, the shining balls, the tin plate balanced on the tip of his nose, and on his face was a look of adoration and joy. "We must seize him at once," cried the abbot, and turned for the door. But at that moment a light filled the church, a brilliant beam of light coming directly from the altar. And both the monks sank to their knees. For as Barnaby knelt exhausted on his carpet, they saw the statue of the Virgin Mary move. She came down from her pedestal, and coming to where Barnaby knelt, she took the blue hem of her robe and touched it to his forehead, gently drying the perspiration that glistened there. And then the light dimmed, and up in the choir balcony the monk looked at his superior and said God accepted the only gift he had to give. And the abbot slowly nodded. Blessed are the simple in heart, for they shall see God. On Christmas Eve, my grandpa used to go. My mittened hand held close in his across the frozen snow. On our way to do shopping like this with a friend of ours.